You hit the number $500,000 sitting right there in your retirement account, 6 digits deep. The balance you spent 30 years clawing toward. You opened the app on a Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, and there it was, $500,000. You stared at it, waited for something to happen. Some wave of relief, some feeling of freedom, some signal from your nervous system that the war was finally over. Nothing came because you did what you should never do. You opened a retirement calculator at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, plugged in $500,000, hit enter, and the screen spit back a number so underwhelming. It felt like a slap $1,667 per month. That is it. That is the grand trophy. 30 years of early mornings, missed weekends, maxed contributions, market anxiety. And the grand reward is $1,700 a month. Before you even think about buying groceries, you traded half your life for a number. That wouldn't cover rent in most American cities. And the worst part is, you're ahead of most people. The median retirement savings for older Americans is $200,000. You beat 60% of the country, and you still can afford to relax. That hollow feeling in your chest right now, that is not failure. It is the gap between what a number looks like on a screen and what it actually buys you in real life. And it is the single most dangerous trap in retirement planning. Because $500,000 sounds like a lot, it looks like a lot. Your coworkers would kill for it. Your parents never had it. But the math doesn't care about feelings. The math says $1,667. And here is what really gets me. That number is completely true and potentially completely wrong at the exact same time. The same $500,000 could have you sipping drinks on a beach in Florida, with plenty of money left over every single month. Or it could have you rationing cans of soup in a studio apartment at 74 years old, wondering where it all went. The difference between those two futures is not luck. It is not the stock market. It is not some financial guru's secret strategy either. It is 5 specific factors that almost nobody talks about in plain English. And today, we're going to talk about every single one of them. My name is Penny, and I spend way too much time running retirement numbers at 2 a.m. for scenarios that aren't even mine. If you've ever stared at your 401k balance and felt a weird mix, a mix of pride and panic at the exact same time, or if you've ever Googled if you can retire on whatever number you have, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Because what I'm about to show you is the actual framework that separates comfortable retirees from truly desperate ones. And it has almost nothing to do with how much you saved. Let's start with the math everyone quotes, but nobody finishes explaining. There is a rule called the 4% rule, developed by William Benjamin in 1994. The concept is dead simple. Year 1, you pull out 4%. You pull that 4% out of your total portfolio. Each year after, you bump that withdrawal up slightly to keep pace with inflation. Benjamin tested this across decades of historical U.S. market data, including the Great Depression, the dot-com bust, and the 2008 financial crisis. Under those conditions, a portfolio following this rule survived at least 30 years. So 4% of $500,000 is $20,000 a year. Divide that by 12, you get $1,667 per month. That is your baseline, your starting line. And look, in 1994, $1,667 a month could actually get you somewhere. Today, that is your rent in a mid-tier city. That is it, just rent. You haven't eaten yet. You haven't turned on the lights. You haven't even filled a basic medical prescription. You're already at zero, and the month just started. Now, you might be thinking that is just the portfolio withdrawal, and that you have Social Security benefits to rely on too. And you're right, that changes things. Sometimes dramatically, sometimes barely. And that is exactly where the first of those 5 critical factors comes in. Because your Social Security benefit isn't one number, it is a sliding range. And where you land on that range creates a $22,000 gap. A gap between two people with the exact same savings. Low earner Larry spent his career in retail and service jobs. He made about $30,000 a year. His Social Security check at 67 is $1,400 per month. Add that to his $1,667 portfolio withdrawal. And Larry is pulling in $3,067 a month, which comes out to about $36,804 a year. Then there is average earner Amy, solid middle-class career, $60,000 a year. Her Social Security benefit hits $1,907 per month. Combined total is $3,574 a month, or $42,888 a year. And finally, we have high earner Henry, a software engineer. He consistently earned over $100,000. His Social Security benefit is $3,200 per month. Combined, he is at $4,867 a month, or $58,404 a year. Same $500,000 in the bank. 3 completely different realities. The gap between Larry and Henry is $22,000 a year. That is not a rounding error. That is a massive difference. That is the difference between clipping coupons for ground beef and booking a flight to Portugal in October. And here is where the first big lie completely falls apart. The lie that your savings number matters most, it absolutely doesn't. Your savings number is just one input in a 5-variable equation. And most people treat it like the only variable that actually exists. That is like judging a restaurant by the size of the building and completely ignoring the food entirely. Technically, you're looking at something. You're just looking at the completely wrong thing. Now, I know exactly what you are going to say to me. Penny, Social Security might not even be around when I retire. I hear this constantly, and look, I get it. The trust fund projections aren't pretty at all. But here is what the doom and gloom crowd never finishes telling you. Even under the worst-case scenario from the Social Security Trustees report, your benefits do not actually go to zero. They de-drop to about 77% of scheduled amounts. That is a cut, absolutely, but it is not an extinction event. Larry's $1,400 becomes roughly $1,078. Amy's $1,907 drops to about $1,468. It hurts, but it certainly doesn't vanish. And Congress has adjusted Social Security before. They'll almost certainly adjust it again, because telling 70 million voters their checks are getting slashed is not exactly a winning campaign strategy. But here is what most people genuinely don't know. And this is the part that makes me want to flip a table. You can check your exact projected benefit right now, today, for free. Go to ssa.gov and create a free account. In 5 minutes, you see your estimated benefit at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70 years old. 5 minutes. Yet, according to the Social Security Administration's own data, nearly half of Americans have no idea what their benefit will actually be. Half the country is planning retirement with a major blind spot, with one of the biggest income variables left completely blank. That is like budgeting for a road trip without knowing the price of gas. You're not planning, you're guessing, and guessing with your future is not a strategy. But perhaps the most dangerous misconception isn't about Social Security at all. It is about that 4% rule everyone treats like absolute scripture. Because here is the thing that really gets me. People hear 4% rule and translate it into a guaranteed safe rate. It is not a guarantee, Benjamin himself said it was meant as a starting point. It was never meant to be a commandment carved in stone. The rule was built on US market data during a very specific period when American stocks delivered some of the best returns in global history. It assumes a specific mix of stocks and bonds. It assumes you don't panic sell during a major market crash. It assumes you don't have a $40,000 medical bill in year 3. It assumes a lot of things that real life has a nasty habit of ignoring. And we haven't even touched on the part that silently eats your retirement alive. It slowly eats it alive while you sleep. The part where a dollar today buys you roughly 45 cents worth of stuff. 45 cents worth of stuff in 20 years. The part where your grocery bill completely doubles, while your portfolio withdrawal stays anchored to a very old rule. A rule invented when gas cost $1.10. That is not a planning gap. That is a hidden trapdoor. And most people don't even know they're standing right on it. And this is where I need to introduce what I call the slow bleed effect. It is the phenomenon where retirees feel financially stable for the first 5 to 7 years, then wake up one morning and realize they can't afford their life. They can't afford the life they've been living. Not because they splurged, not because they made bad investments, because inflation quietly repriced their entire existence. While they weren't looking, it is like a slow leak in a tire. You don't hear or feel it. You just look down one day and you're riding on the rim. Now, you might be thinking your portfolio is invested. It is growing too. And sure, if you got a balanced portfolio doing 7% annually and inflation is running 3%, you are netting 4% in purchasing power. That math works on a whiteboard. But here is what the whiteboard doesn't show you. Sequence of returns, risk. And honestly, this single concept is terrifying. It has destroyed more retirements than bad spending habits ever will. Here is how it works. Say you retire in January with your $500,000. The market drops 25% in your first year. Your portfolio falls to $375,000. But you still need to eat. So you pull out your $20,000, leaving you at $355,000. The market recovers 25% the next year. Great, right? Except 25% of $355,000 brings you back to $443,750. That is not $500,000. You lost $56,250 in purchasing power in just 2 years. And the market technically did its job. It went down and came back up by the same percentage, but your portfolio didn't. It can't because you were pulling money out while it was bleeding. Run that pattern forward. According to research from the Retirement Research Center, the Retirement Research Center at Boston College found some scary numbers. Retirees who experience a major market downturn in their first 3 years are 31% more likely to run out of money entirely, compared to those who experience the same downturn 10 years in. Same crash, same severity. Completely different outcome. The only variable is timing, and you don't control timing. Nobody does. This is why sitting in a savings account earning 1% feels perfectly safe, but it is actually just a big pit of financial quicksand. You are losing 2% of your purchasing power every single year to inflation. Over 20 years, your $500,000 loses massive value. It has the buying power of roughly $330,000 in today's money. You didn't spend a dime. You didn't make a single mistake. You just parked your money somewhere safe and watched it completely evaporate. But going all in on stocks, well, that is the other cliff. A 40% crash in year 1 doesn't just dent your plan. It kills it. Dead, no recovery. You need the market to return over 65% just to get back to where you started from. And that is before you pulled out a single dollar for groceries. So you're caught between two fires. Stay too safe. Inflation eats you alive. Take too much risk. And one bad year wipes you out completely. The financial industry's response to this impossible position is a pie chart and a pamphlet. Maybe a webinar, if you're incredibly lucky. That is like handing someone a paper umbrella. during a Category 5 hurricane and boldly calling it weather protection. The system isn't built to solve this for you. It is built to manage your money while you figure it out yourself. And that is before we even factor in the single biggest expense category. That has bankrupted more retirees than market crashes and inflation combined. Healthcare. The numbers on that one make everything we just talked about look like a simple rounding error. Healthcare, the word alone should come with a massive warning label, because this isn't just a line item in your monthly budget. This is a second mortgage that shows up uninvited and never leaves. Let's say you retire at 60 reasonable age. You worked hard, you're tired, and you've definitely earned it. One problem: Medicare doesn't kick in until you turn 65. That is 5 years of buying private health insurance on the open market as a 60-year-old with absolutely no employer subsidy. In 2025, the average premium for a 60-year-old is $950 a month. That is $11,400 a year, just for the privilege of having a card. Having a plastic card sitting in your wallet. You haven't seen a doctor yet. You haven't filled a single prescription. You haven't even had a single basic blood test. You've just paid for the right to potentially receive care at a discounted rate. Then your deductible shows up, about $7,000 annually. So in a year where anything actually goes wrong, and something will go wrong because you are 60 years old, and your body has been running for 6 decades without a factory reset, you are looking at $18,400 out of a $20,000 annual portfolio withdrawal. You've got $1,600 left for the year. Not per month, per year. That is $133 a month for food, transportation, and utilities. And whatever passes for a life. Run that math across 5 total years. You are burning through $92,000 minimum before Medicare even picks up the phone. That is 18% of your entire nest egg gone on healthcare alone. Gone before you buy a single grocery item. Now, you might be thinking that once Medicare kicks in at 65, you are covered. And I wish that were true the way people believe it is true. Medicare Part B costs $185 per month. Part D for prescriptions runs you another $50. You'll want a Medigap supplement or Medicare Advantage plan because original Medicare leaves gaps wide enough to drive an ambulance through. That is going to cost you another $200. And here is the part that genuinely makes me want to throw something. Medicare does not cover dental, and Medicare does not cover vision, the two things that deteriorate fastest after 65. And the federal government looked at them and said, you're on your own. Better budget another $100 a month for that. Total post-Medicare healthcare costs are $535 per month. That is $6,420 per year. Every year until you die. And here is the number that should be tattooed on every retirement planning brochure. Every retirement brochure in America. According to Fidelity's latest annual study on the subject, the average 65-year-old couple retiring today will need $315,000. They'll need that for healthcare expenses over their retirement. $315,000. That is not a worst-case estimate, that is the average. So let's do the math. Nobody wants to do. You've got $500,000. Mentally earmark $315,000 for healthcare. You are left with $185,000 for everything else. That is for housing, food, transportation, and utilities. 30 years of existing as a human being. That is $6,166 per year, or $514 per month for your entire non-medical life. I know what you're going to say. Social Security covers some of that. Sure, it helps. But go back to Larry with his $1,400 a month. After $535 goes to healthcare, he has got $865 from Social Security, plus his $514 from what is left of his portfolio. $1,379 a month total for rent, food, gas, and everything else. In what city in America does that work? This is why retiring at 60 versus 65 is just a preference. It is a massive $92,000 decision. Those 5 years let your portfolio keep compounding instead of hemorrhaging. They bump your Social Security benefit up completely because every year you delay past 62 increases your check. They cut 5 years off how long your money needs to survive, and they eliminate the most expensive healthcare window of your entire life. But nobody frames it that way. The retirement industry sells you a dream of early freedom. The beach at 55, playing golf at 58. What they don't sell you is the invoice, because the invoice would kill the dream. And dead dreams don't generate management fees. You are not planning a retirement. You are negotiating a hostage situation with your own biology, and your body sets the ransom.